tonight's speaker needs no introduction, so he doesn't get one. So this is awesome having this big crowd here. Y'all have been coming out for the Trust Talks in a big way recently, and it's appreciated. We've had some exceptional ones recently. I will not match those. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to be reasonable. But I started this structure last year. The idea was early November, we have the land management ride around, and that's kind of a small group invitation only thing, but it's a really important day, and we want to translate what that's all about and what that means for the island and what you might see that's going to change over the next few months and beyond. And last year when I presented that, I gave you kind of an overview of southeastern land diversity and characteristics, and I don't want to rehash that. So I thought, well, that's going to shorten the talk a little bit. But I've got research things I want to share. So tonight what I'm going to do is cover the results of more than just the land management day and the work that staff have been doing all year round. Really talking land management. I'm going to talk a little bit about land management on your properties and some questions that have been bubbling up towards me. And then I'm going to talk about some of the research projects that we're doing and that we're doing with our collaborators. Not comprehensive, but some things I just wanted to highlight. And I want to give special thanks to the folks listed here for photos that are included. Jeff Hargadon took some outstanding photos of the land management ride around with us this year. And others have contributed photos and drone footage and all kinds of stuff. And I want to acknowledge these folks and make this. So, the small but mighty team that is the Trust. So we'll begin with Land Management Day. So this has been going on for 30 plus years. This was a great idea to basically say we have a lot of great talent on island. We also have a lot of great talent in the region, and let's benefit from having their eyes on what we're doing as an additional pool of resources for us. And it's actually expanded a bit. So in the last, I believe, 2 years, we've added an ad hoc committee, which is doing quarterly ride-arounds. This is run by Dean Harrigal. Dean is our board member who is our off-island representative on the board. He's a retired DNR professional. And we have a changing cast of characters. It includes Tony, it includes Chris. Sometimes Matt will be with us. And then some board members, David Rich has been a key part of this. And in this image, that's Travis Folk on the right, who actually his father used to work on Spring Island. So he's got a long time perspective on this place. So those happen throughout the year. And then on top of that is this existing early November tradition of having, in this case, it's the Trust Board, the POA Board, the HRB, the Stewardship, and of course staff and off-island experts all get together. And we cruise around and touch on areas of interest. And we go all over the island. There's certain regions we seem to hit year after year. There's certain spots we haven't talked about in a while, so we hit those. And one that we spent quite a bit of time on is this area. So I'm going to try and orient you a few times with these maps. I'm a maps person. If you remember my talk last year, it was 120% maps, my slideshow. So you all know Great Salt Pond. The area to the right of it would be known as Big Neck. The area as you get out into the open water is Palmetto Point. That's where that outer trail goes that's impassable at high tide. Okay, fine, you all call it Africa. And let's look at some satellite images. So this is taken November 2014. I wanted to look at some satellite views to understand this area because it's really low, right? It is barely above sea level. And it's low compared to the rest of Spring Island, which is notable too. This area is dominated by Great Salt Pond. You can see the kind of dug ditch running through the middle of the pond. And then, I've actually got my laser pointer. Right there would be the crossover at the middle dike. There's a water control structure there. And then here's the outer trail where you would come in, and then this would come up. There's the old farm equipment right here. And then this is the trail that takes you out around at high tide. So that's what it looks like in November 2014, and I just want to study change over time. And so I grabbed a few images online, and I looked at October 2016. Who notes the change? Look at all of this.
Yeah.
Let me look back 2 years. November 2014, November 2016. What happened in September 2016? Hurricane Matthew. That's all the rack that was pushed up with the storm surge. Okay? So didn't expect to see all of that stuff. There's more of it accumulated over here too. I'm not going to show all the years. If you look 2 years later, most of it's gone and is deteriorated and been recycled back into the soil. The most recent satellite view is from June of this year. As you're looking at this, so you can see the trail real well in this image. And all of this that's black is black needle rush, right? That's the high marsh plant. That's the one you do not want to fall into because it's really spiky. That's what occurs just above the Spartina layer. And that has been dominated by that plant for a very long time. But memorize this. Let's jump back to September 2005. Trees. Also, look at the trees along the canal here. Memorize that. Let's jump back to 2025. So, this is sea level change and increasing storm surge. Salt comes in with the storm surge, deposits salt in the soil, and it doesn't kill the trees immediately. It can take years for that salt pressure to weaken the tree and it dies off. Since I've been here, this area has changed. So part of the question is what to do about this. What can we do about this? What's the future of this area? So we started our morning and spent quite a while discussing this area. The trees in the background here are mostly slash pine. Those of you that have taken Master Naturalist, I know you knew that. You remember there's 2/3 needles in each cluster, easy thing to identify. But that's significant because it's not a very common plant beyond the southeastern coast. And it is a great area with tremendous diversity. The reason you call it Africa is because it's a grassland that just happens to have pine trees in it, right? And this grassland has huge diversity, lots of flowers. There's a genus called Eupatorium. This is boneset and Joe Pye weed and that sort of thing. There's 8 species of those in here. Need a technical specialist to tell those apart. I can't do it, but it is an area with some really interesting plants. And it's also changing. So as you look back from Palmetto Point at it, you start seeing a couple treetops that are brown. And those are the trees that are dying. And of course, we know that some of the palmettos are already gone and have since been burned in prescribed fires. So the question is, what do we do? I'm going to jump back to that image. We currently burn this on a 2-year rotation.
Wow.
And that maintains it as open, and that mimics what historical fire regimes would have been like. So is that what we should do going forward? Should we worry that this is going to change? What's going to happen over time? The discussion really came to, this is going to turn over time to black needle rush. More trees will die, sea levels coming up, and more storm surge is going to change this, eventually in a catastrophic way. Manage it the way you're managing it for as long as you got it. Enjoy it while it's here. It does have a fixed term. Now, this area that's barely above sea level will become Spartina marsh eventually. And if you look on the other side of Great Salt Pond, that's a little bit higher, and maybe some of this habitat naturally migrates over there, but just their real take was keep managing it, keep managing all these areas the way you're doing it, and let this own marsh migration take care of whatever's going to happen. There may be some finer points to deal with that as we look into the future, but for now it is full steam ahead. It's a remarkable spot, but it does have a fixed time. And the truth is, this area does change. If I go back to 2005, notice there's no canal. The Great Salt Pond had an entrance and an exit up by Pine Island, both in the same dike. And it was only, I don't remember the year, that this canal was dug and this became a unidirectional flow through there. So we are changing things, there are impacts, but then there's also impacts beyond us, but the management is doing what it should be doing. It will keep adjusting over time. And I love it because it's great birding. It's the best spot on the island to see red-headed woodpeckers. We were out there Tuesday and had like 5 of them, including young of the year. While we were there birding, we looked up. This photo is not from Tuesday, but we did see white pelicans flying by out over Port Royal Sound. And Palmetto Point is a very special spot when there's very high tides and the shorebirds need somewhere to roost. And this is a video I took through my scope, holding my iPhone up to my scope lens. So it's going to be a little shaky, but this is when whimbrel were migrating through with a bunch of semi-palmated plover. And they love to eat a fiddler crab. But that extensive open mud flat is great for them, so it's really cool habitat. I kind of want to just show gratuitous shorebird images, but all right, so let's shift to a different part of the island. I've learned a lot of these unit names from staff over time. I've learned from y'all about the history of these names. Pull Betsy Chafin aside and have her tell you the story of why it's called Wirebender. If you don't already know, it's a great one. But, so if you don't know Wirebender, this is straight road circle, and then as you go west towards that's the Clay Range. So Wirebender is this area down here. And we brought the group out there to take a look. So here's our group assembled. The woman second from right is Lisa Lord, who works for the Longleaf Alliance. You might remember she gave a trust talk last year. She informed what we've done in this area. So some of you were part of this. So let's go back to February. In February, Chris burned this area to clear it out. And it looked like that. And Jay Gratton flew a drone, so we have a little bit of video. Notice the classic structure of one person supervising. But it's just wide open, bare dirt. And then if you go back now, you look down and this thing that looks like grass is a seedling longleaf pine that's going to look like that for several years. It might be 5 years that it sits like that. It's actually growing its roots, and then a fire will clear out all the competition and it'll say, no problem, I'm ready to go. And all that energy that's been stored in its roots is going to cause that thing to take off. And so we planted these intentionally in this spot because this is hopefully a view you recognize. This is that crossing in the middle of Wirebender looking south. And there's a whole group of longleaf pine that are 15 to 20 years old in here already. The advice we were given is it's time to start selectively thinning those. So that will be in a more subtle way. It's not going to be a rapid removal of them. But all throughout there, I think y'all planted 2,000 trees in there, 1,500 plus. How many of you were involved in that in February? Nice, nice. That's your trees that you're going to be seeing coming up. So, and then as Lisa walked us out there, she starts identifying all the grass species, Indian grass and all this other stuff that I'm just still on the early days of learning grass identification. It's tough, but there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So that one is doing well. We also made our way over to the edge of the marsh. So there is kind of a shared responsibility with the POA and the trust along the marsh edge. This is the view from the golf house looking out, right? So this is the 9th hole, the 18th hole, and the ruins, right? So Golf House Road, this would be going down the Oak Alley. Here's the ruins, 9th hole, 18th. This area right here is trees, live oaks, and then not much else down to ground level. And once a year it gets cleared. And once a year our phones ring. What's going on out there? Because everybody on this island knows the marsh buffer is very sensitive. And one of the things that's being treated in there is, if you walk out to this area, you'll see these thick stems. Those are woody vegetation that's starting to take hold, so it takes heavy equipment to go in and remove it. Well, instead, they're going to start treating that with spot spray. They're going to use herbicide on those woody things, let the herbaceous layer come up, then you just need to do a simple mowing and set back instead of heavy equipment. So that's going to be an attempt for this coming year. That's really Jay's crew doing that, but one of many collaborations we do with the POA. So I mentioned hand crews. I wanted to talk a little bit about the tools of the trade. You know this tool. You know that prescribed fire is an important part of what happens. This year we're slated for 600 plus acres to be burned. That season may begin in a couple weeks. The duck ponds are in one of the things we burn first. It's very small units, but some of those will be hit pretty soon. Osprey Woods and Wirebender are on the list for burning. Longleaf pine were planted there. They said keep after it, keep the fire pressure going to keep that nice and clear. Also, that Palmetto Point area. I mentioned earlier we do a burn on it on a 2-year basis. That's because Dwight Williams, an entomologist, has been part of this ride around, and he said, if you look at the road there, you've divided Big Neck, Palmetto Point, into 2 units. The road separates it. You don't want to kill off all the bugs that are in your stems over the middle of the winter. But if you burn one half one year and one half the other year, then you keep half the population and the insects recover. So the area closest to Great Salt Pond was burned last winter. This year it'll be the section out towards Palmetto Point. So, and if you go out there, you can see it. It's shrubby on one side and not on the other. And so this will be working to knock that back. We also talk a lot about hand crews. Hand crews would be a group that are hired to do a little bit of everything around the island. And you've seen notices from us about herbicide being used. They're about to wrap up tomorrow 2 straight weeks of working out here, a group of 5 to 10 people depending on the day. And they can do all sorts of things, like they can cut trees quickly. And they did. This was today at the clay range. So if you go to the 5 stand, there's the berm around the edge of it, and it's had trees that have built up over time. If there's a tree on a berm and heavy winds come in and it falls over, you're going to tear that berm apart. So we don't want big mature trees on it. So they have cleaned that section out. This was mid-afternoon that Chris sent me this, and they finished it later today. They also do a lot of what we call hack and squirt. And this is super simple. Now remember, a tree, the majority of it is non-living material. It's just that thin layer right under the bark that's where the tree is alive. And so what they do is they hack into the bark, this with a hatchet or a machete. And if it's a really big tree, you hack it multiple times, and then you spray a potent herbicide directly into that, which gets it into the tree itself. And you do this now because the trees are dropping their leaves and all the energy is going down to their roots for the winter. So if you want to get rid of a tree, this is the time you do it. I have a Bradford pear in my front yard that is no longer welcome. And I will be doing the same thing in my front yard. And there's also a lot of herbicide being used. Now, I don't love herbicide, but you have to use it in certain conditions. There are times when it is the right tool, and you have really pervasive plants that are aggressive and need extra care, where you can't just hand pull them, or in many cases, even enough fire is just not going to reset some of these plants. That's where they've been spraying this week. They've been all over the island, covering a lot of ground. Now, it doesn't mean they've sprayed every single tree in every single place. They're being selective. The guy on the left is in Bird Alley. So that's the unit that wraps around Waterfall Farm. And if you think about it, if you're standing in Waterfall Farm, it's hard to see the golf course, right? That's the idea. But if you go into that vegetation, it's really dense and thick, and right in front of him is a thicket of sweet gum. Sweet gum is a native but weedy tree. And so we are after that to reset and try and control the species diversity in there and not have these really dense thickets of sweet gum. So sweet gum is not a bad tree. It is a good native tree to have. It provides habitat, it provides food. The caterpillars on it feed baby indigo buntings and painted buntings and all kinds of stuff. But it also is just a really successful tree. And if we get out of the way and we don't have enough disturbance, then we have too much sweet gum. There are trees that are not inherently bad, but they really shouldn't be here. So in the 1980s, you could pick up a book that would say, here are some plants you should put in your yard in order to feed the birds. And one it would recommend was Chinese tallow tree, also called popcorn tree, because it has great little berries that birds love to eat. You could buy it at Lowe's and Home Depot. They're easy to grow. And unfortunately, because the birds love to eat them, they love to then fly and defecate and drop a seed, and then that seed germinates, and this tree has been very successful here. It is possibly in your yard right now. And right now, it looks like this. It has beautiful fall color in November. If you have one that's this big, just go pull it out yourself, right? If you have one that's getting bigger, you could try hacking it down. It might regenerate from the roots, maybe not. Maybe you want to spray it with a little bit of glyphosate or something. If you have one that's 50 feet tall, call us, because we want to go hack and squirt that thing. So we are actually working on Pine Island on tomorrow. I believe the crew is out there because there are a couple of thickets of larger trees. They have snuck past our careful eyes in the nature preserves. It happens. They're just a little bit off of a trail and you just don't notice until it's November and suddenly like, wait, there's this big yellow tree and that bark looks funny. And that one, if that thing is 50 feet tall and dropping fruit, it's causing a problem all over Spring Island and maybe Kalawasi and maybe Lemon Island as the birds fly around. These come up in my yard and I don't know where any parent trees are in my neighborhood. The birds are just moving around. Two you might not be as familiar with that are invasive species as well are Japanese climbing fern. It's a pretty distinctive, it's a pretty plant. I mean, it's a nice kind of vining fern, but it can pop up anywhere because how are ferns dispersed? By spores. So they're just windblown. They could show up anywhere. And then there are two species of wisteria. There's a native one, which is wonderful, and then there is the Chinese one that if you drive around here in April on 170, you see wisteria blooming on all the roadsides, and unfortunately it's this one, and some has popped up down by Bonnie Shore, which we just found out about this week. So that one is being treated as well. So,
Andy,
yeah.
You might want to mention with that Japanese climbing fern, if you do choose to pull it up, you need to put it immediately in a black plastic bag.
That's a great point. Yeah, since it's spore dispersed, if you just throw it on the ground, the spores can keep blowing around. So, yeah, don't do anything other than throw it in the trash. Yep. Don't put it in your compost pile. Yeah. All right. So let's look over by Cubby Rise. So now we're going to the southeast part of the island. So Bee Tree coming across to Spring Island Drive. You go to the end of Cubby Rise, the actual road. We call this all Cubby Rise as part of the trail. I'm going to first talk about this section and then this one. The first section, this is the view from the trail looking back to the golf course at hole 14. And a couple things have been happening here. There is another native plant called peppervine that was starting to take over. So that has been sprayed and the grasses have recovered and done really nicely. It's been agitated again in order to get rid of some of the other plants that are competing with it. But you may see a little heavy-handedness in some of the fields, but overall the grass community is responding well. And then looking beyond, I don't see a golf hole through there. And this area has changed from the original intention. And the actual intention was from the golf course to have a view into the nature preserves, making a connection out to Cubby Rise. So there's a thick line of shrubs in the middle that are just, I believe, simply going to get bush hogged. They're just going to get knocked back. But this area, this area will get opened up again because it's really a nice, clear, open field view along Cubby Rise, but the connection between those two is supposed to be restored.
Good.
The north end of that, this was fall of last year. So in September, there was really a beautiful emergence of lots of native plants. Tony and Rob did some filming at this spot. It was impressive. The number of butterflies was kind of ridiculous here. And one of the features was this plant, the false foxglove. Really a cool plant. And it doesn't look like this year. And we wouldn't actually expect it to. So we got to talk about fields a little bit more. And one of the things we did in Cubby Rise was stop with our group and have some discussions. This is Dean Harrigal, outstanding in his field. Yeah, thanks for the courtesy laughter. And we spoke about fields for a while just to remind people of the process that's happening. The process is succession. And if you have a disturbance on the left, whether that's fire or hurricane or bulldozer or whatever it is, over the course of the next few years, you get small herbaceous plants that get established, and then you get pine trees, and then after that, the pines eventually get succeeded by different hardwoods, and eventually you get to sort of the long-term forest, right? The number of years on the bottom was written for New England. I think you could shorten a lot of this stuff because I think pines show up in 10 minutes after they're completed. I mean, we all know the pine forest at the corner by the interstate, or by the traffic light here, right? That has grown in the 3.5 years I've lived here remarkably, but that was cleared not that long ago. And so you see succession happening, and the goal with a field is to reset it on this time scale. So we let things kind of grow, and then do a disturbance to reset it and start over again. Because you can't hold it at year 2 unless you start over. So if you get up to year 3, you can go back to year 0 and start that cycle. If it's year 10, now you've got plants that are this big around. Fire's not going to do it. Now you're getting heavy equipment in to reset that field. That's pricey, right? And that's a lot more work. And so there is value in those mid stages of succession, and we do want some of that on the island. But a lot of this is either we're maintaining a forest or we're maintaining fields by frequent succession. This has been happening here for years with plows and harrows and fire and all of these things. Herbicide is a component of that. There's lots of things that happen. And then nature does its own thing too, like the back corner of the Mobley Oaks intersection, where there's a little bit of trees, but then it's wide open in the past. Anybody who's lived here pre-Hurricane Matthew remembers that being thicker forest, and then Hurricane Matthew had other ideas and turned that into a much more open space. And this is the view from Star Mountain, right? Looking to the south. And you can see this left side is a field that gets reset every year or 2, right? There's no shrubs, there's no dense woody stuff, it's just herbaceous layer. The right side doesn't get reset as often. So this is maybe on a 3 or 4 or 5 year rotation. And then in the back, right there, are some taller things that have gotten out of hand that are now going to have to get reset so we can clear this area a little bit more. And if you wonder why we divide it up that way, I didn't know this until I went up there in the middle of winter. There's a canal dug right, a ditch dug right in the middle of it. And so those trees growing right there have tons of water and they grow really fast. So, and you can see that little bright green strip where there's deer management happening in the back corner. But anyway, that's lots of fields to manage out there, and they're important. I think part of the discussion last Thursday was how this is a habitat type that's once was common because agriculture slowed down. We started having people leave the fields and farms and go into cities, and you had more fallow fields, and this was great for grassland animals. And then eventually they get tall and some things revert to forest, and forest is wonderful, but we don't want everything to be forest all the time. So some of these fields and meadows need a lot of input, and the day after the land management group was here, we brought one of the folks back. The guy sitting on the left side of the tailgate is Tim Evans, who works for Audubon, South Carolina. And he brought his crew who work for him at Beidler Forest, just north of here. And they not only work at Beidler, but they cover all of South Carolina, and his crew are very familiar with a lot of this meadow setup. And so they were there to work with us to talk methods and equipment. And part of that involved going out to Goose Pond Circle Field, which I don't know if you've noticed looks different than it did a year ago. I don't know if you've picked up any subtlety, right? No, it is a kind of a barren desert out there. And that is by design, because if you reset a field in a simple way and walk away, it's still full of all the weed seeds. And in some cases, we have Bahia grass and other grasses that are non-native that are aggressive and take over. So one of the ways you get at that is by hitting them, and then hitting them again, and then hitting them again. So Jay and his crew have sprayed that field 5 times this year. And if you walk out in the middle of it, dewberry is still fighting the good fight and still coming up. So if you don't know dewberry, this is a bramble, so this is a blackberry relative. Again, it is not an inherently bad plant. I love eating dewberry in the summer. It's really a great berry, and wildlife love it. But it is a very aggressive plant. I'm pulling it up in my yard all the time. There's a cost to having a lot of it around. And so there's one more layer of spraying that's happening this week trying to knock this back, because we're trying to do it right. And the next step is more of this. So Chris is driving our tractor pulling our Truax. The Truax is a no-drill seeder. So it puts in seeds without turning the soil, because if you turn the soil, you expose the weed seeds that are 1 inch or 2 inches underground. Instead, this has 8 slots that it cuts in the ground. It opens them, drops the seeds in, and then closes them. It has 3 sets of wheels on the underside of it. It took multiple people working through it to calibrate it, because it takes a lot of calculation to get the seeds to come out at the right rate, so you don't do 20% of it and say, well, we just used $6,000 worth of seeds, and we're out of seeds. So this was getting to play around with it. This was a roadside wildflower mix that's going in just in that front strip. The real seeding will be in a month or 2. And it's really going to be the spring when this really changes. So bear with us. This is a new approach, but we're wanting to see how this does.
Can you help me figure out where this is?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put a map in for this one. I don't think it'll show up on any of the other maps that I can jump to. This is as far southeast as you can go, just before Goose Pond Circle itself. It's across from David and Cindy Rich's
On
house.
the wire, if you can see it on the wire.
Yeah. I'll get there kind of quick. I'll get
Yeah,
there.
no, I got it.
Oh wait, there we go. That'll get us there.
Firebender.
That'll get us down there, right there.
Right. Okay.
Right, all the way as far south as you can get, southeast. All right.
Andy,
Yes.
what are you planning for the rest of it?
So the seed mix that succeeds there is annuals and perennials. So it's a mix of, I don't know, 20 to 30 species that are tall grasses, small grasses, tall flowers, small. There's familiar things like Coreopsis and black-eyed and brown-eyed Susans and those sorts of things. There's some stuff Matt's had good success with elsewhere. Walker House Field has some of these things in it currently. But it's a wide variety, and honestly, you put it in and you don't just walk away. You gotta keep after dewberry and things like that. But also, these things compete with each other, and the way it looks in 2 years is gonna be different than how it looks in 4. And after 4, we might say, you know what, we need to hand seed something else on top of what's in there.
But the idea is to maintain it as a field with flowering plants.
Correct. And this, so this will get burned or bush hogged or something forever to keep this as I think it's about a 2.5 acre field, and that's the long-term plan.
Okay.
So this is setting us up, because if you just keep mowing or so forth every year, we found out we were winter burning. Winter burning actually clears out the competition, and dewberry is active in the winter, so it's like, yes, take it over, right? So,
Andy,
This
what
is-
was
yeah.
the plant that was growing 8 to 10 feet tall in that field about 5 years ago?
that was really full of flowers.
No, it was higher than a cornfield, but it was not the same, it didn't have any green.
There,
It was a hemp.
sun hemp. Yeah, so, yeah, there was, sun hemp went in, and that's an annual. And it doesn't reseed itself very well. It's also not native to South Carolina. And so that one, we could have fields with that, but we would have to herbicide or hard reset in some way every year. And so the idea here is this is a softer process longer term. All right, questions? All right, well now we gotta shift to your yards. Right, because I've talked a lot about what we're doing on our properties. Well, you've got lots of resources at hand. We had the native plant sale a couple weeks ago. Susan, is it 1,300 plants that were sold in that weekend?
Little over.
That's pretty amazing, pretty amazing.
And that's just the all five.
Yeah, it's a huge success for the native plant project. It's really done great, about 100 species for sale in there. Also, there's been some needs because that has been set up for quite a while. And so Susan has been very busy. And with her team of a small group of volunteers took every plant out of there, which I think exposes why it's time to replace the fabric. If you look at that image, they have been patching and repairing and tripping on roots for many years, and also dealing with pressure from plants growing over the fence. And so a group came out and cleared a line around the fence itself, and then reset the whole thing. So that was great. And so as the plants are they now all back in? Nice, nice. Not quite getting there.
Yeah, we finished today.
Okay, all right, awesome.
Go,
Awesome.
Susan.
Yeah, well, it's not just Susan, it's the whole team, but it's awesome. It's Susan's really pushed this forward, and this is a great asset. There's still some more tweaks to be done out there, but really nice work. So you've got things you can do. If you need to add more plant diversity, you've got a whole team of people in this audience who know their plants really well. You got Matt Turnbull. Actually, the whole staff know nature really well, and you should come ask questions. And if you have other questions, one of the things you should do is go back and watch the Trust Talk from Basil Camus. Basil was here on a night when there were lots of competing events, and we had a small turnout for what was a wonderful talk. Basil came in requiring an honorarium because he runs a company as well as a nonprofit. And we said, well, if we're going to pay for him to come in, we want to have a public benefit as well as a Spring Island benefit. So he was the speaker the night before for the Low Country Master Naturalist Association. So that group of 60-some people were in the Trust Barn that night. The next day, he gave our talk, but he also took us on a ride around. He spent time with Tony and Sloan and Chris in the morning riding around, and then in the afternoon jumped in a trailer with members from Stewardship and HRB. And Jay Gratton was there. Also, that's Action Austin. Some of you will know him as one of the arborists that works here. We wanted to connect him with Basil and ask questions about whatever we wanted to cover. And one of the things we discussed was this spot. So the X is marking the spot where Little Neck is coming into Mobley Oaks. And if you look to the south, you can see some of the houses. So it's like, what do we do about this view shed? And the reason you want to watch Basil's talk is to hear his take on what it's like to plant dense seedlings. If you plant dense seedlings in there, they grow rapidly. This is like 3 years of growth in one of the examples he gave. And if you want to establish a visual barrier, you just plant dense seedlings and then step away and just let it happen. Some of the seedlings aren't going to make it because they're too close to each other, and one is going to win and the other is going to lose. But that's okay, because you planted so many in there. That sounds like a nature curtain. That doesn't it? Right? And that's essentially what we spoke about with him. We said, what do we do about these nature curtains that are aging and changing? And he reminded us of primary succession. You start with pine trees in most places, because that's just what comes up on its own. And then as they get taller, they shade out what's below them. If you want, you can thin those a little bit. You can remove some to get more sunlight in. But also, you can just look around on Spring Island and say, what happens as the next generation of succession? Once I'm at this 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 year point, what happens? And maybe depending on your soil type in your particular yard, it might be hickories start to come in, or oaks, or other hardwoods start to come in. It's going to take care of itself, but you can jumpstart it by adding more seedlings into this spot. So that was his recommendation for thickening some of these up. Bringing sunlight in does help along the way. A couple other things that have come up recently about yards. Does anybody know why I took that picture? Anybody know what those little yellow dots are? Chanterelles. All right, this was a big emergence of chanterelles. I won't tell you where.
You're gone.
They were delicious. But I will tell you, that's Spring Island Drive right there. Why are there chanterelles in this particular spot?
Oaks.
Because there's oaks, and also there are leaves on the ground. The leaves are going to break down. They're going to take a while to break down, and they are going to be consumed by soil microbes, which enrich the soil, and that is going to improve the soil, and these are there to help break that down. And that's great for these habitats. So you will hear this mantra out there of leave the leaves, and it's important. And I won't promise chanterelles, but other great things will happen. The other thing to leave alone are dense thickets. Right? If you want to see turkeys, you want to have a combination of open fields and dense thickets. If you want to have painted buntings nesting in your yard, you need dense thickets. This is lots of density of shrubs down to the ground, leaves left alone on the bottom. These nature curtains are important, right? And that's along the roadsides, like all of these things are really important. So when you hear about the value of these things, we're not playing around. It's serious that these are great habitats for so many animals. And honestly, dense cover is members' responsibility because we're managing open longleaf and places like Osprey Woods and Duck Ponds and Palmetto Point, and we look to y'all to maintain these dense areas. And I got a little skin in the game. That's my side yard in March. I've left all my leaves there. I've got my one fig tree trying to make it through there. I also, well, it's partly because I hate mowing, but I'm slowly smothering parts of my grass with cardboard and laying mulch down and putting native plants in there. So I'm pointing my finger at you, but I'm pointing at me too. Okay, so beyond land management, I want to cover some things about research, and then I'll wrap things up. So I've gone through kind of laundry lists of lots of stuff that's going on in our cocktail parties recently. I don't want to rehash all of that. There's a few things I do want to highlight. Last week, after the land management meeting, we had bat researchers from several institutions here on island. Some of you might remember Lydia Moore on the left. She spoke, was it 2 falls ago, as a Trust Talk speaker and gave a really remarkable talk about bats. And so she worked with Tony to bring a group out here. They set up nets and put pulled them up into the canopy to see what they could catch, and caught this really cool Seminole bat. Seminole. So we are keeping track of the species of everything on Spring Island. Bat diversity is important. It's awfully cute, right? That's what you're all saying. They're great animals. But it's an important part of our diversity because they are eating insects and things you might be a little less excited about. Lydia has been, and so we hope she comes out and does more work just to document what's out here. Whenever we have bat photos turned into us, we send them around, and sometimes we send them to her. I was having a meeting with Matt and Chris on the Nature Center porch and looked up, and hanging from the porch roof was this thing, which she told was a tricolored bat, which is a rare animal and one I'd never seen before. And I'm sure you're aware of this kind of research going on. So you might know this guy, Tony, on the left. Tony Mills has been working with alligators his whole life and has also been collaborating with Thomas Rainwater. Hopefully you saw Thomas Rainwater's excellent Trust Talk a year and a half ago. But Thomas has been working with Tony for over a decade and has been coming out to Spring Island consistently since 2017. So this is something the Trust funds, bringing him out here to keep this great collaboration going. Marion Boucher is part of that. They're doing all kinds of work that you've heard from Thomas, you've heard from Tony. What you may not realize is the team effort that goes into this, and this research project gets turned into an education effort along the way. So the women holding onto the alligator are our 3 interns from last summer. So we pay 3 USCB interns to do all kinds of stuff around Spring Island, and they got the thrill of working with several alligators along the way and contributing to real research. Everything from measuring those to, well, I don't think they actually did the stomach flushing, but they got to see some of the stomach flushing. Our interns are also doing great things like water quality testing. So members are volunteering on the front docks to look at saltwater water quality, but also we're looking at some of the freshwater issues on the island. And any of these opportunities to get people out in the field are important. So to see research in action, to be part of it, and also just to understand what's in the field. And so Tony in particular does a lot of this work with USCB and other groups that get connected with us. Some of these are future teachers and folks studying biology that can carry the Spring Island knowledge forward to the next generation out there. And the group on the right are releasing king snakes. So I don't know if they actually released them. They look like they're really fond of them. They may all be in their homes now. But these are long-standing, successful projects, and I think it's just good to get a reminder that these are happening. And the final piece is I wanted to mention that there is some research happening off-island. It's in the early stages. Now, I did say I was going to show some more gratuitous images of shorebirds. I can't resist. I love living by the coast and getting access to all this shorebird diversity. There's like 4 species in there. There will be a test at the end. The numbers that we get on Spring Island are pretty good, but a lot of the species are on the front beaches where the waves are crashing. And the place I really spend a lot of my time is east of Beaufort. So going across St. Helena Island, you see Harbor and Hunting and then Fripp and then Pritchard's. And I didn't click the button, so it's not animating. Get there. There we go. So we're going to zoom in on the north end of Hunting Island. And when you've driven out there, you cross one last bridge over Johnson Creek. And the north end, north of the campground, is a long spit of sand that at high tide is where the shorebirds hang out, waiting for the tide to drop so they can go feed. So if you're like me and you want to do something for science, you can go count those birds, which I'm doing as part of the International Shorebird Survey. This is a protocol set up all over the world. I've been going out every 2 to 3 weeks since July. And honestly, July is heavy fall migration for a lot of these birds that nested in the Arctic and are heading to South America and just stopping through. So let me show you my numbers from July 23rd. All right, so 500 semi-palmated plover, 640 short-billed dowager. Notice 4,000 terns were out there. If you wonder what that looks like,
How do you estimate those numbers?
how do I estimate those numbers? I'll come back to that in a second. All the dark stuff is Wimbrel. The small stuff in the front is lots and lots of stuff. The long-winged black ones down low are black terns. A year ago, we had almost 4,000 black terns out there. You see a skimmer standing in the top right. How do you estimate those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, honestly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what 10 looks like. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. That's what 100 looks like. Now go out across the group. In the case of the terns, we had 3 of us estimate how many total terns, and then we figured out how do we roughly break them up into groups. That's the best you can do. Otherwise, it's impossible. So it's a thrill getting out there to see this stuff. We're hoping to help recognize the value of this spot, because it's not like this on every island. Although another island that has quite a bit is this group at the north end of Pritchard's Island, and that's Fripp Island in the back with the houses. Pritchard's, remember, is owned by USCB. This is their research lab, and they had funding without an advisor to study shorebirds out there. So I became that advisor. And so when I'm doing the shorebird surveys on hunting, they're going out to Fripp, to Pritchard's by boat, and they're counting the north and south ends of the island to see what's out there. So on the left is Captain Tyler, on the right is Tom O'Brien. If you ever go to Bray's Island, he works with Jake out there. He graduated from USCB a year and a half ago and is a super sharp birder and has documented some great birds, like throughout the spring last year, semi-palmated plovers peaked at almost 1,500 birds. The one we were really eager to have him look at was red knot. Hopefully you know the red knot story and their connection to horseshoe crabs. And notice the peak numbers were over 600. And he looked carefully at red knots and found several with color bands on their legs that we now know were multiple years old and have gone all over this planet. So a really cool thing to track what's happening in the region. They also, because a lot of the faculty at USCB are spending time working at Pritchard's, they don't have time to teach their classes. So since they have funding from the state, they came up with the idea of hiring a postdoc for a couple of years who's finished his PhD and would do some research and some teaching, and they wanted to get an ornithologist. So William Oakley's PhD was with Eli Bridge. Eli Bridge and I went to grad school together. Eli studies bird migration, and he connected me with William, who's has previous experience on Kiowa Island studying salt marsh sparrows, and he's now at USCB for 2 years, and will be embarking on some projects which will involve work on Pritchard's as well as Spring Island, which is still being set up, early days in that, so I'll have more to share about that. So that is a whirlwind view of Port Royal Sound and Spring Island, and I appreciate your rapt attention tonight. I got an eager question asker there.
There's been a couple of times over the last 5 years that if you were volunteering with the longleaf pine, you got to bring some home. I don't know. If we don't have fire in our backyard, how will those, I'm not having much luck.
Okay.
Getting my good go.
They can do okay if you kind of mimic disturbance by just getting rid of the stuff around them, which might be as simple as in the winter raking some of the dead vegetation away from them. Some of my staff might have better ideas than that, but I'm thinking of like the Cooper, are the Coopers here? They were here. The Cooper's front yard on Bee Tree. They've got some longleaf in their front yard right by Bee Tree that have done great. They're, I don't know, they're 10 and 15 feet tall. So yeah, I would think you need to get involved a little bit. Probably our native plant project folks can help out with that one too. But there are plants around. We will be doing more planting sometime this winter, and we get them for next to nothing, so we could share more if necessary. Yeah.
About a week ago, I was all over our neighbor's island, the Kalawasi Island. I didn't see a single alligator, and usually, it was a bright sunny day, usually you see them hauled out on the golf course.
Yeah.
Do you think they've done a removal over there?
I don't know. I might defer to Tony on that. Do you know anything about Kalawasi
I'm
changing?
suspicious.
You're suspicious.
I don't know of anything in particular, but there are a lot less alligators on Tallahassee than there. So it could be.
Yeah.
I can find out.
There was one that I saw a lot right as you get onto Kalawasi from Spring in the big pond, and I've realized recently I hadn't seen it in a while. Yeah, we don't do such things. Other questions? Yeah.
Are there any wild cubbies left on the island?
Are there any cubbies left? No. So there were quail here historically that were augmented with raised quail. And at some point the balance tipped from raised to wild, and I don't know much other than things that people have mentioned to me. But I think it's been quite a while since there were any quail on Spring Island. And honestly, it's hard to know where to see wild ones in Beaufort County anymore. So I do keep a bird list of things I've seen. And I do pay a lot of attention to what I've seen in Beaufort County. I might have driven out of my way to go see a bird because it's for my list in Beaufort County. And quail is one I do not have in this county. I have heard them on, I don't remember the road. It's one of the last roads as you go north on 21 towards 17. There's an old plantation there, but the plantation releases quail. And so are they wild or are they not? I don't know. That's actually true in a lot of the deep southeast anymore. Unfortunately, their numbers have just gone down as the number of fallow fields has declined. But it's a shame. A lot of plantations have them. How many are wild? How many are captive bred? It's hard to say. Yeah.
Can you update us on the coyote situation?
Yeah, coyotes. So there were 5 removed so far by the deer management team. So if the deer management folks are out and they see a coyote, they do shoot. We've had 3 removed earlier in the year by the trapper. Trapper had a illness in the family in the peak season, and we missed some time in there. And he's not retired, but has sold his company, so we're working to get some other folks in that group that we can work with. So, but he was here last week at one of the members' properties as well.
So what's the status?
So, I mean, there are coyotes here, and that's always going to be the case. We ask that folks keep us updated, especially, seeing one incidentally in your yard, but you don't have one for 2 weeks before or after is a transient animal that we can't really do anything about. And we probably wouldn't in that case anyway. If you have them consistently in a spot, then that's actionable. And our goal is never to remove them all, but we want to suppress the numbers. Trying to remove them all is folly. It'll never happen. We have footage of them coming to our traps and sniffing it and saying, no. They are, the more you trap, the more you teach them what trapping is. And so we have to be pretty careful about all of those things. So we want to have powerful tools when a problem arises. And having them present is not a problem. A problem is when the behaviors become problematic or when their numbers become problematic. So we're trying to do sustained trapping to maintain a certain number. I think we're in the transition of they're new here, their population gets big, and then it settles into equilibrium over time. We're somewhere in the middle of that process.
So
Yeah.
And are you doing anything to promote that population?
Yeah, so, I can't remember if I sent it to her or not. There had been a question about putting a bat house by the equestrian barn. I got a design from Lydia Moore. I know Tony's worked with setting these things up too. And if anybody's interested in like ordering one to put in their yard and put in your house, we can share that information. It's not like putting up a bluebird box where you get a bluebird like that year. It often takes a while for the bats to find them. But yeah, I think putting houses up is one of the things we can do. We know there's places that they're using, and they love mature trees. As we've learned, they love the columns in the front of some nice houses on Spring Island, where they've been reproducing in large numbers. Yeah, so I think just having healthy ecosystems is great for bats, and then if you want to see them and bring them to your yard, having a bat house can be helpful. And Wendy, you have a question?
The hornets, how are
Yeah.
you doing with the hornets?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about the yellow-legged hornets. Still here. Several nests were removed. One of them was really problematic because it was on a tree leaning out over the marsh. And so how do you get equipment out there to get somebody up in a scissor lift? And they ended up flying a drone. The drone shot pesticide into the nest and then sprayed it with water trying to weigh it down and knock it down. It's really hard because you can't just cut the nest down and walk away because most of them live and then they go set up another nest. And in fact, the one that was removed, I don't know if this was on a fox squirrel, I can't remember the yard this was in, but where they found the nest, there were remnants of another nest on the ground below it. So they probably started a nest and it fell, and then they just started again overhead. So Clemson was out here, USDA was out here this fall. We're talking with them about playing a role with them next year, which I don't know what that's going to look like. But they have made it past St. Helena Sound, and they're over on the Edisto side already, and they're all over. Yeah, I know the beekeepers are agitated because they're seeing them, really hitting their colonies pretty hard. There's a natural hive on a pine tree right by real estate of honeybees, and you can watch it, and the hornets come in and maraud. So they're here. It may be like coyotes where they're a long-term future and we can do what we can to try and keep numbers down. I don't think we know. There's lessons to be learned from Europe, which has been dealing with the same thing for longer than we have. I don't have enough expertise to go beyond that.
I missed the trust cocktail party, but we have the pamphlet you sent home. What is Tony holding? There's a photo.
What is humor, Tony?
He's holding a huge thing.
Oh, that's the nest?
Yeah.
It's a yellow.
Oh, it's the nest.
Yeah.
Yeah, yellow-legged hornet nest.
Scary.
Jay's crew got that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, big brown nest. If you see suspicious nests, let us know. Although the seasons, they're kind of done, they've gone out and dispersed, and they're going to start their next nest next year, which is kind of tough. But, yeah.
I'm just a traveler, and I've seen 5 of those yellow hornets myself already.
Yeah.
Between here and Chichester, and to me that says they must be really ubiquitous.
You're seeing individuals or nests?
Individuals.
Yes, yeah. They go away from their nest and wander. So.
But I mean, I've seen more of them than anything.
Yeah, there's quite a few around. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to talk with the Clemson folks for next steps. Another question over here. All right, we're going a little long. Thank you for your attention tonight.